What happens when royal privilege collides with American late-night television? Tonight, we dive into the explosive confrontation that left audiences stunned and a prince without a platform. This is the story of how Prince Harry went from guest to persona non grata in the span of one disastrous interview. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, telling me what you think about celebrities who can't handle tough questions. The Late Show with Stephen Colbert had been riding high on a wave of successful interviews, but nothing could have prepared the veteran host for what was about to unfold. Prince Harry had agreed to appear on the show to promote his latest philanthropic venture, but what started as a standard celebrity interview quickly devolved into something far more sinister. Stephen Colbert sat behind his desk, his trademark grin already starting to fade as he sensed the tension in the air. Prince Harry had walked onto the stage with an air of entitlement that immediately rubbed the audience the wrong way. His handshake with Colbert was perfunctory, almost dismissive, and he settled into his chair like he owned the place. "So, Prince Harry," Colbert began, his voice carrying its usual warmth despite the palpable awkwardness, "thank you for being here tonight. I understand you have some exciting projects you want to discuss." Harry shifted in his seat, his jaw already set in a defensive position. "Well, Stephen, I appreciate the platform, though I have to say I expected a bit more respect for what I represent." The audience stirred uncomfortably. This wasn't the charming, self-deprecating royal they had expected. Colbert's eyebrows raised slightly, but his professional composure remained intact. "Respect? I mean, we're certainly honored to have you here. Can you tell us about your new foundation?" "Before we get to that," Harry interrupted, his voice taking on a sharp edge, "I think we need to address the elephant in the room. Your writers, your researchers, they've clearly done their homework on me, but I wonder if they understand the gravity of who they're dealing with." Colbert leaned back slightly, his comedian's instincts kicking in. "Well, I mean, we do our research on all our guests. That's kind of how this works." "Is it?" Harry's voice was now openly confrontational. "Because from what I've been told, you have some rather pointed questions prepared. Questions that frankly cross the line of appropriate discourse with a member of the royal family." The studio audience was dead silent now, sensing that something had gone very wrong. Colbert's producers were frantically gesturing from the wings, but the host was a professional who had handled difficult guests before. "Harry, look, I ask tough questions sometimes. That's part of the job, but I always try to be fair and respectful. Maybe we should just start with your foundation work and see how it goes?" Prince Harry leaned forward aggressively, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper that the microphone still picked up clearly. "Stephen, let me be very clear about something. I didn't fly across an ocean to be interrogated by some comedian who thinks he's a journalist. I came here expecting the reverence that my position demands." "Reverence?" Colbert couldn't hide his incredulity anymore. "I mean, this is a comedy show. We poke fun at everyone, including presidents and world leaders. Surely you can handle a few light-hearted questions?" Harry's face flushed red with anger. "Light-hearted? You call questioning my military service light-hearted? You call bringing up family disputes light-hearted? I've seen your show notes, Stephen. Don't pretend this was going to be some friendly chat." The tension in the studio was now suffocating. Audience members were shifting uncomfortably in their seats, and even the usually unflappable Colbert was beginning to show signs of strain. "Okay, hold on," Colbert said, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "I think there might be some miscommunication here. Yes, I had some questions about your military career, but they were meant to be respectful, highlighting your service. And as for family matters, well, you've been pretty open about those yourself in interviews and your book." Harry's eyes narrowed dangerously. "That's entirely different. When I choose to speak about my family, that's my prerogative. When you ambush me with gotcha questions, that's something else entirely." "Ambush?" Colbert's voice was rising now, his own patience wearing thin. Harry, you agreed to come on this show. You knew what kind of show this is. Nobody forced you to be here. No, but someone certainly misrepresented what this appearance would entail, Harry shot back. I was promised a respectful platform to discuss my charitable work, not some tabloid-style interrogation. The audience was now murmuring audibly, clearly uncomfortable with the direction the interview had taken. Some were even getting up to leave, sensing that they were witnessing something that was rapidly spiraling out of control. Colbert took a deep breath, trying to salvage what was left of the interview. Look, Harry, why don't we just start over? Tell me about your foundation. What inspired you to start this particular charity? But Harry was past the point of salvaging anything. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the studio floor. You know what, Stephen? I think I've heard quite enough. This is exactly the kind of media manipulation that drove me out of Britain in the first place. Media manipulation? Colbert stood up as well, his voice incredulous. Harry, we haven't even started the actual interview yet. All of this has been you getting upset about questions I haven't even asked. Haven't asked yet, Harry repeated mockingly. But you were going to, weren't you? You were going to sit there with your smug little grin and try to make me look foolish for your audience's entertainment. The studio was in chaos now. Producers were running around trying to figure out what to do. Audience members were talking, loudly among themselves, and security personnel were beginning to position themselves strategically around the stage. Colbert, to his credit, tried one more time to de-escalate the situation. Harry, I really think you're misunderstanding what we do here. Yes, I ask tough questions sometimes, but I also give people a platform to share their message. Isn't that what you wanted? Harry laughed bitterly. A platform? You mean a trap? Well, congratulations, Stephen. You've managed to prove exactly why I have no faith in the media. You people are all the same, just vultures circling, waiting for your moment to strike. That's not fair, Colbert replied, his own anger starting to show through his professional demeanor. I've built my career on being fair to my guests, even the ones I disagree with politically. I've never ambushed anyone, and I wasn't planning to ambush you. But Harry was beyond reason now, his voice rising to a shout that echoed through the studio. Fair? You call this fair? Bringing me here under false pretenses, planning to humiliate me in front of millions of people? This is exactly the kind of behavior that makes people lose faith in journalism altogether. Colbert stared at Harry in disbelief, his hands spread wide in a gesture of complete bewilderment. Harry, you're shouting at me about humiliating you, but you're doing that all by yourself right now. My audience came here to have a good time, not to watch someone have a meltdown on live television. Harry's face contorted with rage at the word meltdown. Meltdown? You think this is a meltdown? This is me finally standing up to people like you who think you can treat members of the royal family like your personal entertainment. Members of the royal family? Colbert's voice was incredulous. Harry, you literally wrote a book calling out your own family. You've done dozens of interviews criticizing the monarchy. You can't have it both ways, demanding royal treatment, while simultaneously rejecting everything the royal family stands for. The audience began to murmur their agreement with Colbert, which only served to infuriate Harry further. He whipped around to face them, his voice dripping with contempt. Oh, so now the peanut gallery has opinions? These people wouldn't understand. The first thing about the pressures I've faced, the sacrifices I've made. Hey, whoa, hold on there, Colbert interjected, stepping protectively toward his audience. These are good people who paid to be here tonight. They don't deserve to be talked to like that. Harry turned back to Colbert with a sneer. Good people? They're here to watch you tear me down, Stephen. They're complicit in this whole charade. Every single person in this audience came here hoping to see me fail. An audience member near the front shouted out, We came here to see a good interview, not whatever this is. Several others voiced their agreement. Harry's eyes blazed as he pointed toward the voice. There it is, the mob mentality that destroyed my mother, that drove me out of my own country. You people are all the same, feeding off drama and conflict. Colbert's patience was wearing dangerously thin now. Harry, that's enough. You're way out of line here. These people have done nothing to you except show up to support my show. Support your show? Harry laughed harshly. They're here to watch. A public execution, Stephen, and you know it. That's what all these late-night shows are. Just modern-day coliseums where the audience gets to watch people get torn apart for their entertainment. The studio was buzzing with angry voices now. Audience members were calling out their displeasure, and several were making their way toward the exits. The situation was deteriorating rapidly, and Colbert's producers were frantically trying to signal him to cut to commercial. But Colbert wasn't backing down anymore. You know what, Harry? You're absolutely right about one thing. This is entertainment. But the only person making a spectacle of themselves here tonight is you. I invited you on my show to talk about your charity work, and instead you've spent the last 10 minutes insulting me, my staff, and my audience based on absolutely nothing. Harry stepped closer to Colbert, his voice menacing. Based on nothing? I know exactly what you had planned, Stephen. I've dealt with your type my entire life. Parasites who make their living off other people's pain and controversy. My type? Colbert's voice was rising now, his professional composure finally cracking. What exactly is my type, Harry? Someone who works for a living? Someone who doesn't expect to be treated like royalty just because of who their father is? The words hit Harry like a physical blow, and his face went white with fury. How dare you? How dare you reduce everything I've accomplished, everything I've overcome, to just being born into privilege? What have you accomplished? Colbert shot back, his own anger now fully unleashed. You served in the military, which is admirable, but so have millions of other people who don't expect special treatment for it. You started a charity, which is great, but again, lots of people do that without demanding that everyone bow down to them. Harry was shaking with rage now, his voice barely controlled. You have no idea what I've been through, what I've had to endure. The press hounded my mother to death, and now they're doing the same thing to my wife and children. Then why do you keep doing interviews? Colbert demanded. Why do you keep writing books and going on television if you hate the media so much? You can't complain about press attention while simultaneously courting it. Because people like, you give me no choice, Harry screamed, spittle flying from his mouth. You create these narratives, these lies, and if I don't respond, then the lies become the truth. I have to defend myself and my family. Colbert shook his head in disgust. That's the biggest load of nonsense I've ever heard. Nobody forced you to write that book. Nobody forced you to do that Netflix series. Nobody forced you to come on my show tonight. You chose to do all of those things because you wanted the attention and the money that comes with it. The accusation of being motivated by money seemed to push Harry over the edge completely. He lunged forward, getting right in Colbert's face. Money? You think this is about money? I've given up everything for my principles, everything for my family's safety and privacy. Privacy? Colbert laughed incredulously, not backing down despite Harry's aggressive posturing. You've shared every intimate detail of your life with, the entire world. You've told us about your therapy sessions, your drug use, your fights with your family. If you wanted privacy, you could have just stayed quiet and lived your life. Security personnel were now moving closer to the stage, sensing that the situation was about to escalate beyond verbal confrontation. The audience was in an uproar, with some people cheering for Colbert and others calling for Harry to be removed from the studio. Harry's voice was hoarse from shouting, but he wasn't finished. You don't understand what it's like to have your entire life dissected by strangers, to have every mistake you've ever made broadcast to the world. Actually, I do understand that, Colbert replied coldly. I'm on television every night. I get criticized constantly. The difference is, I don't throw tantrums when people disagree with me or ask me tough questions. That's part of being in the public eye. Tough questions? Harry snarled. Is that what you call character assassination? Is that what you call trying to destroy someone's reputation for ratings? Colbert's voice was ice cold now. Harry, the only person destroying your reputation here tonight is you. I haven't asked you a single tough question yet. Everything that's happened here has been your own doing. The truth of that statement seemed to penetrate Harry's rage for just a moment, but instead of backing down, it only made him more furious. This is exactly what they did to my mother. They pushed and pushed until she couldn't take it anymore. Don't you dare, Colbert said, his voice deadly serious. Don't you dare use your mother's memory to justify this behavior. She would be ashamed of how you're acting right now. The mention of his mother seemed to break something fundamental inside Harry. His face went through a series of expressions: rage, hurt, disbelief, before settling into something far more dangerous. The studio fell into a tense silence as everyone waited to see how he would respond to Colbert's devastating words. You, Harry said, his voice barely above a whisper but somehow more menacing than when he had been shouting, have absolutely no right to speak about my mother. None whatsoever. Colbert stood his ground, though the gravity of what he had said was clearly weighing on him. Harry, I'm sorry if that was too far, but you can't keep using her as a shield every time someone challenges you. That's not fair to her memory, and it's not fair to anyone trying to have an honest conversation with you. Harry's hands were clenched into fists at his sides, and for a moment it looked like he might actually take a swing at the host. Honest conversation? There's nothing honest about this ambush. You brought me here to humiliate me, to get your viral moment. And when I called you out on it, you decided to attack the most sacred thing in my life. Sacred? Colbert's voice was filled with disbelief. Harry, you've written about your mother in your book. You've talked about her in every interview you've done for the past 5 years. You've made her part of your public narrative, so don't act like she's off limits when it's convenient for you. The audience was completely silent now, sensing that they were witnessing something that had gone far beyond entertainment into deeply personal territory. Even the producers had stopped their frantic gesturing, seemingly frozen by the intensity of the confrontation. Harry took a step closer to Colbert, his voice shaking with emotion. I talk about my mother to honor her memory, to make sure people remember what the press did to her, not so people like you can use her against me in some pathetic attempt to score points. Score points? Colbert shot back. Harry, this isn't a game. This is you having a complete breakdown on live television because you can't handle the idea that someone might ask you a difficult question. Difficult question. Harry laughed bitterly. You haven't asked me any questions, Stephen. You've just sat there while I've defended myself against accusations that exist only in your head. This entire thing has been you trying to provoke me into exactly this kind of reaction. Colbert shook his head in amazement. Harry, do you hear yourself right now? You walked onto this stage already angry about questions I hadn't asked yet. You started this fight before I even had a chance to conduct an interview. Harry's voice cracked with emotion. Because I know how this works. I've been dealing with people like you my entire life. You smile and pretend to be friendly, but you're just waiting for your moment to strike. People like me, Colbert repeated slowly. You keep saying that. What exactly do you think I am, Harry? You're a predator, Harry spat. You make your living by tearing other people down, by exposing their weaknesses and failures for public consumption. You're no different from the paparazzi who killed my mother. The comparison was so outrageous, so far beyond the bounds of reasonable discourse, that even the most sympathetic audience members began to turn against Harry completely. The murmur of disapproval was audible throughout the studio. Colbert's face was a mask of controlled fury. That is completely out of line, and you know it. I have never, not once in my entire career, tried to hurt anyone or put anyone in danger. The fact that you would compare me to the people who hounded your mother shows just how far you've lost touch with reality. Harry was breathing heavily now, his chest rising and falling rapidly as if he had just run a marathon. Lost touch with Reality. The reality is that you people have made it impossible for me to live a normal life. The reality is that my wife and children are threatened every single day because of the hatred that people like you spread. Hatred? Colbert's voice was incredulous. Harry, I've never said a hateful word about you or your family. The only hatred I'm seeing here tonight is coming from you. From me? Harry's voice reached a new octave of disbelief. I'm the one being attacked here. I'm the one being ambushed and humiliated. Colbert gestured broadly at the studio around them. Harry, look. Around you. Look at what's actually happening here. You've spent the last 20 minutes screaming at me, insulting my audience, and making wild accusations about things that haven't even happened. How is that being attacked? For a brief moment, Harry seemed to actually look around the studio, taking in the sea of disapproving faces, the concerned expressions of the crew members, the obvious discomfort of everyone present. But instead of recognizing his own role in creating the situation, he doubled down. This is exactly what they want, he said, his voice taking on a paranoid edge. They want me to look unstable, unhinged. They want people to think I'm crazy so they can dismiss everything I say about how corrupt this system is. Colbert ran his hands through his hair in frustration. Harry, nobody made you act this way tonight. Nobody forced you to have this meltdown. You did this to yourself. Meltdown. Harry repeated the word like it was poison. There's that word again. That's what you'll call this tomorrow, isn't it? Prince Harry has a meltdown on the Late Show. That'll be your headline. If that's the headline, Colbert said quietly, it won't be because I wrote it. It'll be because that's exactly what happened here tonight. Harry stared at Colbert for a long moment, his breathing gradually slowing, but his eyes still blazing with anger. You know what, Stephen? You've gotten exactly what you wanted. You've provoked me, you've made me look bad, and now you get to play the victim. I'm not playing anything, Colbert replied. I'm just trying to understand how we got from me welcoming you to my show to you comparing me to the people who killed your mother. Harry's laugh was bitter and hollow. You really don't get it, do you? This was always going to end this way. You people never change. You never learn. At this point, Colbert's head producer was frantically signaling from the wings, drawing a finger across his throat in the universal signal to cut the interview. Security personnel had moved closer to the stage, ready to intervene if necessary. Colbert looked toward his producer, then back at Harry, his decision made. You know what, Harry? You're right about one thing. This needs to end. But not because I'm trying to hurt you or ambush you. It needs to end because you've made it impossible to have any kind of rational conversation. Harry's eyes narrowed. So you're going to throw me off your show now? Going to have security escort me out like some kind of common criminal? I'm not throwing you off, Colbert said calmly. I'm asking you to leave. You've insulted me, you've insulted my audience, you've made wild accusations, and you've compared me to murderers. I think we're done here. Harry looked around the studio one more time, his gaze taking in the faces of the audience members, the crew, and finally settling back on Colbert. Fine, he said, his voice dripping with disdain. I wouldn't want to stay somewhere I'm not wanted anyway. Harry, Colbert said as the prince turned to leave, for what it's worth, you were wanted. Here, I invited you in good faith to talk about your charity work. Everything else that happened tonight was your choice. Harry paused at the edge of the stage, turning back with one final glare. History will vindicate me, Stephen. People will see this for what it really was. As Harry stormed off the stage, the audience sat in stunned silence. Colbert remained standing behind his desk, visibly shaken by what had just transpired. After a moment, he looked directly into the camera. Well, he said, his voice still somewhat unsteady, that was not exactly what we had planned for tonight. The audience began to applaud, slowly at first, then building to a sustained ovation for their host, who had weathered one of the most bizarre and uncomfortable interviews in late-night television history. And there you have it, folks. one of the most explosive television moments ever captured on tape. What did you think about Harry's behavior tonight? Was Colbert too harsh, or did the prince get exactly what he deserved? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one.